The night was swollen with silence. Clouds smothered the moon, and the town lay buried under a sky as black as unmarked graves. I stood at the edge of Hollow Creek, my revolver heavy, its cylinder loaded with only 5 bullets. 5 sparks of hope against 20 shadows that moved in the dark. They weren't men anymore, not to me. They were shapes without mercy, drawn by greed, by vengeance, by the price on my head. Their boots scraped against the earth, circling, spreading, a ring of predators tightening around prey they believed already broken. I heard them breathing, low and eager, rifles and pistols whispering against holsters, knives glinting in stray firelight from the last lanterns of the town. 20 shadows, 20 debts demanding collection, and I was the only man left to answer. I should have felt fear. 20 against 1 is not a fight, it's a burial. But fear had long ago burned itself out of me, leaving nothing but a cold certainty. I did not stand in Hollow Creek to win. I stood there to make the night remember me. The wind crawled through the street, carrying dust, lifting loose shingles, rattling shutters. It felt like the town itself was shivering, knowing blood would wash its dirt before dawn. Behind closed doors, eyes peered from cracks, breaths caught in throats. The people knew my name, and tonight they would see how it ended. I turned the cylinder, hearing each bullet click like a coffin nail. 5 in all. 5 choices, 5 graves. That was the sum of my chances, the shape of my fate. The rest would come down to shadow and silence, to how long a man can stand before the desert claims his bones. The first shadow stepped forward, tall and broad, his face hidden, his rifle shining like a cold star. The others followed, spilling, from the dark like wolves from the tree line. They wanted me on my knees. They wanted to bury my name in silence, but silence is not where legends go. So I raised my head, let them see my eyes, and said to the night itself, 5 bullets, 20 shadows, let's see who disappears first. The first rifle cracked the silence, thunder tearing across the street. The shot missed, biting into wood, sparks raining from the livery's side. I did not answer. Not yet. Patience is a blade sharper than any bullet. I waited for the second. Rifle the third, the chaos to begin. And then, when their rhythm faltered, I fired. My first bullet tore through the chest of the rifleman, his body folding before the smoke even cleared. The second flew into the lantern hanging by the saloon, duels, shattering light into fire and flame. Darkness broke into chaos, and suddenly the shadows were blind. I had 3 bullets left. They fired wild, their shots ringing against stone and dirt, splintering wood, breaking glass. I moved like smoke, low and shifting, slipping from shadow to shadow. Their numbers meant nothing if they could not see me. Their rifles meant nothing if fear shook their hands. The third bullet found the throat of a man rushing me, knife raised high. He collapsed, choking on his own vengeance, his shadow dissolving into dust. I had 2 bullets left. The ring tightened around me, but gaps had begun to show. Shadows wavered, hesitated, broke. Men called out to each other in the dark, their voices sharp, desperate. But desperation is louder than courage. It makes men stumble, makes them fire at echoes, at whispers, at ghosts that are not there. I had become that ghost, slipping through their circle, cutting pieces away one at a time. Another rifle roared, and fire bit into my shoulder, spinning me sideways. Pain burned bright, but I steadied, breath slow, vision clear. Pain does not end a fight, pain sharpens it. I raised the Colt again, finger curling slow on the trigger. The 4th bullet flew, and another shadow dropped, blood soaking the dirt. 1 bullet remained. 19 shadows still breathed, and yet the fear had already begun to kill more than I ever could. The night grew heavier, pressing down like a coffin lid. My arm throbbed, blood soaking my sleeve, but my grip did not loosen. The Colt still weighed steady in my hand, though only 1 bullet slept inside. 1. The last word I could speak in. This language of death. The shadows whispered among themselves now, their courage breaking into fragments. Some cursed, some prayed, some dared each other to move. None did. The circle held, but tighter, closer, suffocating itself with its own fear. I felt them shrinking, even as their numbers towered above mine. One bullet is more dangerous than a full chamber. One bullet carries choice, and choice is heavier than lead. Who would carry it? Which man would feel the weight of my decision? I saw their faces through the dark, each one painted with firelight and fear. And I let them wander. Minutes stretched like years. Every shadow believed itself chosen. Every finger twitched near a trigger. I could feel their hearts beating as loud as mine, each one waiting for the thunder that would decide whose body fed. The dirt next. I stepped forward, slow, steady, my boots grinding the silence. One bullet, I said, my voice low, steady, and it's not wasted. The words cut through the air sharper than steel. I didn't aim, I didn't need to. Fear was already doing the work for me. One man broke first. He screamed, raised his rifle and fired. The shot missed wide, panic spilling out of him like blood. His weakness infected the rest. Rifles cracked, wild and blind, bullets biting dust and stone, tearing into shadows instead of flesh. I moved through the storm, the Colt raised, one bullet chambered, waiting. Not for luck, not for chance, waiting for the exact heartbeat when fate itself blinked. The street exploded in fire and sound. Bullets whistled past, wood splintered, glass shattered. The night was a storm with no sky, only smoke and screams. Shadows turned on each other, rifles barking into the chaos, vengeance drowning in confusion. 20 had become less, though none could count. Not even me. I moved fast, my body burning, my breath ragged. The Colt's hammer brushed against my thumb, the last bullet whispering like a prayer. But prayers are fragile things. I needed this. One to roar. I needed it to tear through more than flesh. I needed it to carry my name. A figure lunged from the smoke, bayonet flashing. I ducked, drove my shoulder into his chest, felt his breath leave in a rush. My revolver kissed his temple, but I didn't fire. No, not yet. The last bullet wasn't. For him, it was for something bigger. Another shadow screamed, clutching his leg where his friend's shot had torn through it. Panic spread, wild, unstoppable. Men fired at each other, at the dark, at phantoms their fear had made. The night had become my ally, and the desert my shield. I raised the Colt high, pointing not at a man, but at the sky. My voice followed, hard, unbroken. One bullet, I roared. One left, and it's for the man who thinks he'll see the sun. The words hit them harder than any round. In the dark, every man thought he was the chosen one. Their fear became a knife, cutting their own circle apart. They stumbled, cursed, fired again, rifles tearing into the night. I stood calm at the center, revolver steady, waiting, until I saw the one who didn't break. Reddick, their leader, their iron spine. I aimed slow, steady. My finger curled, and the last bullet left the Colt like lightning. The shot echoed through Hollow Creek, splitting the storm in two. Reddick fell, his rifle clattering into silence, blood blooming across his chest like fire across dry grass. The leader was gone, and with him, the shadows lost what little courage they carried. The circle collapsed. Men fled into the night, rifles abandoned, boots pounding the earth like a stampede of ghosts. Some screamed, some cried, some cursed my name, but none dared stay. 20 shadows had come, fewer than half remained, and none of them would ever call themselves hunters again. I stood in the empty street, my revolver smoking, chamber hollow, body bleeding. My breath was ragged, my vision blurred, but my shadow still stretched long across the dirt. 5 bullets had spoken, 5 shadows had fallen. The rest were killed by fear itself. The townsfolk crept from their doors, their faces pale, their eyes wide. They looked at me as if I were not a man, but a ghost standing against the world. And maybe I was. A man who had given his last bullet to fate and still stood breathing. I holstered the Colt, empty now, lighter than it had ever been. My hands trembled, my legs burned. But I walked forward, each step carving the silence deeper. Behind me, Hollow Creek whispered. Ahead, the desert waited. They would tell it in saloons, in camps, in whispers over campfires. 20 shadows against one man, 5 bullets. And when the dust cleared, they still called him the gunslinger. And though my body bled, though the desert pressed close, I carried one truth with me into the dawn. I had remained the gunslinger until the very end.